if you or your team can't crack a band 6 in the year 11 or 12 HSC Standard Math exams because you keep making silly mistakes, this is exactly what you need to do to eliminate every single one of them. And for those of you who don't know me yet, my name's Andrew. I failed math in year 11, and in year 12 I got 100% in all my tests and topped New South Wales for Standard Math. Ever since then, I've helped hundreds of students with my company ACM Tuition score a band 6 in the HSC and eliminate silly mistakes. So this is exactly what I would do with that out of the way. So what I need you to understand is that silly mistakes can be fixed, right? And you can fix them, but a lot of students just do the wrong things. If we look at silly mistakes, what I see a lot of students do is either one of two things, right? You can call this the pre-work and the, let's call it exam work. Right? So students usually fall into one of these two categories, right? They're not doing enough pre-work or they're not doing enough exam work. What exam work looks like is, to fix silly mistakes, you bring highlighters in, you highlight the question, you double check everything when you go. So double check everything. And you try and eliminate your silly mistakes in the exam, right? So this is good, but we also need to focus on this work, right? And what I see, the mistake a lot of students do here is they do the work, they think, all right, I've checked my work, I've marked my work, I've seen all the silly mistakes I've made, and they don't write them down, or they don't analyze them, or they don't review them at all. And so they do all this work, but none of it's marked by them or reviewed, right? So what you're left with is a whole bunch of silly mistakes that we could have caught that we just don't. So here's the exact thing that we need to do to eliminate silly mistakes. And you might not like it, right? But this is the only method that works, right? It's to do so much volume, right, that we catch all our silly mistakes before we go into the exam. I'll say it again. The only way to eliminate every single silly mistake is to do so much volume that we make every single possible silly mistake we can in the practice test beforehand. And so we review them, mark them, we know what we're going to do next time, so that when we go into the exam, we know every single mistake we've made, we know what we're going to do when we see them as well, right? And we have an action plan of what to do when we see like a common silly mistake pattern when we go into it. So what does this look like? For those of you who've been in any of my holiday programs or seen any of my other videos, you would have seen that the key for volume here is doing the right questions. There's no point doing questions that just like random school papers if you want to get like 100% in your test, right? You need to be doing HSC specific questions. But not only that, before you even start studying for your test, you need to be doing the pre-work before. Right? So this is the homework that we're doing. Right? Every day you have math, you should be doing homework. Right? And in this homework, what we want to be doing is doing this method, right? DMDMR, right? The DM method, I call it. Do it, mark it, do it again, mark it, and then after that, review it, after you had a couple goes at it. Right? And when we're reviewing this, right, no matter what type of mistake we make, even if it's a silly mistake or if it's a content issue, what we're going to be doing is doing an asterisk sign of exactly what we did wrong. For example, if we use the compound interest formula, and we put a minus instead of a plus, and that's the mistake we did. We wouldn't just be like, I did a minus instead of a plus. I'll fix that for next time. I'll just remember it. Because you never do. What you need to be doing is every time, no matter how small or how big the mistake is, you need to be writing what it is and how you're going to fix it. So, for example, for this, I might put, let's say, remember corrects formula. Or I might even say, double check formula before continuing. Right? So and I maybe even write this. Maybe I don't even write this, and I just write this, and I write FV equals PV1 minus 1 plus R to the power of n. So why this is important is there is no way, like you have to put conscious effort into eliminating silly mistakes. If you just look at this and you're like, yep, I'll remember it for next time. You don't give your brain a chance to process that. This is actually important and we need to fix this. So no matter what, I'm saying no matter what, right? If it's small, if it's a massive issue that we made and we don't understand the content for that, write a small note of what you did wrong and what you're going to do next time, so that the next time we see this in the exam, we're like, oh, even in next time you see it in the practice test, you're like, oh, I remember compound interest. Last time I did a question on them, I wrote a minus instead of a plus. What am I going to do next? This time I'm going to write a plus. So this goes all the way back to homework, right? This is like, when I say like you need to like do homework properly, and it's not just a to-do list. It's not just a tick box to see what's, to hand it into your teacher and they mark it off. Right? This is actually where we're catching these silly mistakes, right? This is the volume we have to do. And so if you're not doing this, you're missing out so much on all the silly mistakes you could have caught, right? And what this is doing is this is just adding to our checklist. Checklist. So pretty much every time we make a mistake or a silly mistake, we're writing a little asterisk sign of what we're going to do next time. And we're just building an invisible checklist of all the silly mistakes we've ever made. And eventually when you get to the exam phase, so you're in the exam prep, what you're doing is just the same thing, just on a larger scale of harder questions, right? You're going through all the HSC Standard Math questions from previous years based on the different topics. And then you're doing the same thing, DMDR, and you're writing asterisk signs for all the silly mistakes you make, or even the normal mistakes, right? And the reason why, it goes back to this as well. Do not forget this. We are doing so much volume and making every single silly mistake we can for the test, so that when we go into the test, we understand exactly what we need to do. And so that's from doing all of this and also all of the exam prep stuff. If you've seen some of my other videos, you know exactly what I did, before a test to get 100%. Like I said, we're building an invisible checklist so that when we walk into this exam, we get prepped and we know exactly what we need to do. Right? So that's the pre-work stuff that we need to focus on. Make sure you're reviewing the text, right? Make sure you're actually having a go at it, like you've seen in my other videos. Or I should say, but that's not all. We also need to work on this exam technique. So when you go into the exam, right, and this is a good thing I see a lot of people doing, is, right, you actually need to pay more attention. You'll be surprised how much more marks you save and how less silly mistakes you make if you actually just pay a bit more attention. So that's the first thing. Pay more attention. The second thing is make sure you're highlighting / underlining. I can't spell underlining. Cool. So make sure you're highlighting / underlining. In the test, I never brought highlighters because I thought it was a waste of time, but I'll just underline with a pencil. And you're not just underlining everything. You're underlining the key important stuff you need to know. And this isn't to save you marks. It's for a quick reference when you're reading the question. So, for example, if the question says something like round correct to 2 significant figures. Actually, let's get it up an example real quick. So for example, if I'm reading this, a family currently pays $320 for groceries, inflation rate is 2.9%, 5 years. I'm highlighting stuff for quick reference. So at the end of the question, when I finish it, I can just look back and see, all right, have I used all these key figures here, right? It might not just be that, it might be, right? So for example, here, I might put compounding 6 monthly, right? Or if it says correct to 2 significant figures, I make sure I circle that, right? Let's say this was correct to 2 significant figures, so that I actually understand look back at the question when I'm done, and it's quick reference. All right, two significant figures. Have I done that? And you're pretty much set for that. So that's the big thing, right? Making sure you're highlighting for quick reference. Okay, and the last step for this is working. And this is so underrated as well. For our working, we need to be knowing exactly what we're doing on each step. You don't know how many times I look at students' work and I say, all right, you've made a silly mistake on this line. Take compound interest, for example. Let's say they don't even do this. They do 1.05 power 7 times 800, right? And I look at their paper and it looks something like this, or they're doing 800, 7, and then eventually they get to an answer of, I don't know, say 907. I don't know what the answer of this is, right? Right? And I look at the paper and they've made a silly mistake somewhere, and I'm like, all right, what are you actually doing on this line? And they're like, I don't know. Like, if you don't know what you're actually meant to do on this line, how are you meant to avoid the silly mistake? Right? So the big thing here is you need to be knowing exactly what you're calculating on each line. And the way to structure this, there are some rules to this that, I've learned along the years. First one is only one equal sign on each line. So if you're writing something out, let's say we're writing the formula for this, right? All we want is one equal sign on each line. Let's say FV equals to 800, 1 plus R to the power of 0.7 to the power of 7, for example, like this, right? And then we keep going and we get the answer of 950 or something. I don't know what the answer for this. I haven't put in the calculator, just for example, right? This is how we should structure it, not random things at different times, like equals 800, or maybe they calculate this here, and then underneath that it's like a 800 or something like that, right? We want to be doing it structured like this. And the next thing, or the last thing we should say, is you want to be showing exactly what you're calculating on each line. So if there is nothing on this line, it means that this is the same as this, right? And this is the same as the previous one, right? But if we're changing this up, right, you want to know exactly what you're doing on each line. For example, right, what is the current value of shares? Let me just eliminate this, right? Adele has 2,000 shares. The current share price is $1.50. Adele is paid a dividend of 0.3 per share. What is the current value of her shares? So value equals 2,000 times 1.5, which equals to $3,000. Yeah, you see, we don't just put this on the page, right? And we like this. Because like if you're looking at this and you don't know the question, you have no idea what's going on, right? And so treat it as like your working you should be able to look at your working, or your marker should be able to look at the working and know exactly what's going on, even without seeing the question before. So if we eliminate this and go back to here, right, they can see exactly what we're calculating and one equal sign on each line. Next one, dividend yield, right, equals share price over, dividends over share price. So that equals 0.3 over 1.5. And then that equals to 0.2, so 20%, right? So at least I assume it's 20%, right? So this is how you structure your working. Make sure you have one equal sign on each line. And the next one is make sure you know exactly what you're calculating on each line, right? If nothing is here, we just assume that this is the previous amount, right? And if we want to change this, we just have to put something else on. So, value equals this. And because we're going down the page, we're changing what we're calculating here. So now the dividend yield is equal to this. Right? So that's how you structure your working. look at this video, right? Watch it again, right? Make sure you get really familiar with this because in the lesson, we're going to be going through more of this in depth with you guys. So hope that all makes sense. If you have any questions, just post them in the discussion page. And yeah, let's get cracking. If you don't know ACM tuition, there's a link in the description. It allows you to book a call with me and I'll just see exactly what we can do to help you get a band 6. I'll build you out a full roadmap of what we can do. So, with that out of the way, hope this helps. Let me know if you have any questions and let's get cracking. See you guys.